everybody, welcome back. On this channel we cover UFOs, CE5, and related phenomena. So going into this video, I wanted to discuss to the Stars Academy as a CIA PSYOP, or psychological operation. Now, since TTSA has been around, there's been accusations and rumors that they are part of, at the least, a CIA program to misinform the public on what people are calling a CIA disclosure, or the CIA taking the CIA file, whatever that means. And at the most, the accusations have been, well, TTSA is a precursor to a false flag alien invasion, meaning that TTSA and the government disclosure is a precursor to what will eventually become a fake human or government staged invasion upon humanity using reverse engineered extraterrestrial or alien or UFO technology to hoax the American public and really the world into believing that we're falsely being attacked by UFOs, and this whole plan will be to execute and secure a new form of advanced control via centralized power. And in my opinion, and I understand, and this is something Dr. Greer has talked about, to be clear, and other people have called Project Moonbeam and what have you. There's a lot of talk about this for decades, and has also been called the last card. Now, while I see that as not being impossible, I also don't see that being probable. In my opinion, that is an extreme scenario, and there's a lot of reasons why I think that. And not to mention, you have to keep in mind, and even the secret keepers or gatekeepers or watchers, whatever you want to call them, what people call the cabal, they would also have to consider that at literally any point in time, and I'm sure they're well aware of this, at any given point in time, the phenomenon can set the record straight whenever it sees fit. It can come down here and announce its presence, and if it wants to, its intentions, literally at any time, and seal the deal. So, that's only one reason why I see that scenario as being unlikely, because if such a thing were to happen, I don't see any other scenario that would more provoke the phenomenon itself from stepping in and saying, yeah, that's not us, or whatever the case may be. But there's really a lot to cover on this topic, going all the way from to the Stars Academy being a CIA operation, just to kind of take control of the UFO narrative and set its own paradigm, with an approved disclosure where they're not going to give us the whole reality of it, and where they're only going to give us the bare minimum, and they're not going to get into like reverse engineered technologies and recovered crashed or landed UFOs and alien or extraterrestrial bodies, whatever it is, and the deeper aspects of the research that has kind of been in the UFO lore for the last 70 or so years. So I can see why people would think, oh, well, To the Stars Academy is putting out this new kind of approach. They're talking about UAP, and they're disregarding the UFO mythology for all these years, and all the research that's done prior, and the baggage that comes with the term UFO. But beyond that, they're only saying X, Y, and Z, and they're not taking it further than that. And I completely understand where somebody could speculate from that point, and have suspicion. And I could agree that's something worth posing as a question. But the problem we have here is that people are stating these things, that To the Stars Academy and TTSA is a PSYOP, and they're stating this as a fact. And that's completely unproven at this time. You know, again, if you pose it as a speculation, a possibility, a question, that's the right, or that's the mature or appropriate thing to do. Fine, pose it as a question. But to state it as a fact and then go on from that point as being the basis of your argument and jumping and leapfrogging from there to everything else, you know, you're jumping off a false footing. You know, there's no balance in that. So, and then they're running with this argument and going on from there when you have a starting position that you don't know is valid to begin with. And I know they would argue for sure they know that this is a fact, and you know, whatever the so-called evidence they're providing is kind of old ufology stuff that was speculated on and research done by Jim Mars about the Fourth Reich and the Nazis involved with UFO technology. And I don't see how that forms the exact basis and foundation for the argument that means that TTSA equals CIA operation. I think you need a lot more than that. And sure, yeah, Luis Elizondo and people into the Stars Academy have been involved in the intelligence community. But we have to consider a few things here. Okay, number one, if we want inside information, it has to come from inside, whether you like it or not. There's no way around that. Number two, and probably more importantly, is consider the information that's been put forward so far by To the Stars Academy. Okay? And I know people are going to argue on the spin, and that's for another discussion, another debate, and I think that is valid. That's a valid discussion. But they're not presenting us with false information here. It's not just all fake information that they're just putting out there and it has no basis in reality, and it's completely misinforming and disinforming the public. That what they're putting out has been factual information that is educating the public and the mainstream and opening the subject to the world for the first time in a way since the 1950s, where people are like, oh my God, this is real. And since it's being destigmatized, I mean, we see it in the paper almost every day, if not every week, with serious coverage asking real questions, serious questions, and it's getting writers on board from, you know, all different kinds of backgrounds. You have academics, official reporters, and many other different very serious people weighing in on the situation now and, you know, continuing coverage and continuing to ask questions and continuing to put forward facts that actually fit into the basis of the UFO or UAP reality. And that's exactly what we need. So the people saying that this is all a PSYOP, I mean, you know, again, I understand where you're coming from as a suspicion, but look at the overall picture of what's going on. What's going on right now is a good thing. This is being opened up for everybody to take seriously and look at. The right questions are being asked, and the right information is beginning to be provided from all different outlets. And that's exactly what we need. So if this is some kind of PSYOP, I mean, is it really that bad? Now, and I'm saying I understand the dangers of a controlled spin of the UFO or UAP topic into the public, and where if they paint a certain narrative and stop it there, you know, ultimately in the long run, that's not going to be good for us. But I really don't see it going in this direction, and to the point where you even have Luis Elizondo going on mainstream media saying that he believes, based on his involvement with ATIP that the U.S. government is in possession of UFO debris. Okay, so that's not a backtrack. That's a step forward. If anything, To the Stars Academy seems to be more edgy and what I'm calling their phase 2 or phase 3, depending on how you look at it, from when the time they first stepped out into the public, and so they started putting this information out. And they don't seem to be backtracking it. In fact, they're becoming edgier, and they're pushing the envelope. And even in their show Unidentified, they're putting forth the idea that it's not even like this was just discovered, like some people were assuming, but there's been a cover-up. They blatantly state that and demonstrate that in recent months in their show, and the things that they've been saying publicly, and appearances by Luis Elizondo and Chris Mellon in the mainstream media. So that's not backtracking. They're pushing the envelope and saying, no, there's way more to this. In fact, there's a clip of Luis Elizondo from the MUFON Symposium, I believe it was in 2018, where Luis Elizondo states that, all you UFO researchers, everything you've been talking about and researching all these years, well, you were right. He's not saying, everything in ufology is correct, but he's letting on to the idea that there's a lot more truth to what we've been talking about in the UFO community than previously thought before. And the idea of To the Stars Academy being a PSYOP, again, is not an invalid argument, but we shouldn't state it as fact. We also have to consider that this information coming from, the inside is likely coming from a group that has had access to this knowledge and information for some time, and they've been wanting to get it out, but there's been extreme resistance from all their other counterparts. There seems to have been, for years, competing factions within the corridors of power and secrecy, or the cabal, whatever you want to call it, that are the gatekeepers of this subject from inside. Like I said, from in unacknowledged programs and people who have the real information. I'm talking about the people who have access to reverse engineering, craft retrieval, exotic UFO technology, and possibly knowledge of extraterrestrial, alien, UFO life forms. And that even, I know I'm going to mention this name, people are going to get pissed off to begin with, but Dr. Greer said when he started the Disclosure Project, there were 1/3 of this group who wanted this out. And as the years went on, after more information was coming out via the Disclosure Project and other initiatives, that 2/3 of this group wanted at least some of this information out. Maybe not all of it, because for whatever reason they're saying that some of the stuff is really beyond what people even imagine. But regardless if you think Dr. Greer is exaggerating or whatever the case is, there are people that have access to this knowledge, who have had access to it, and they're not in unison of they all agree and they're all working together on everything. No, they have their own interests, beliefs. Even you have the Collins elite who knows about this stuff and they're pushing against it, and they're trying to suppress it by all means necessary because of their fundamental religious beliefs, and they think it's demonic. But beyond that, this group seems to have competing factions from within, and we're seeing this play out in the mainstream, where the group that has greenlighted this confirmation or disclosure and is trying to push the information out there is meeting resistance. You're getting these statements from the Pentagon saying Luis Elizondo wasn't involved in ATIP. First they said they didn't know where the videos came from. We know that was BS. Then they said, oh, well, ATIP, we don't know if it actually investigated UAP. It was a real program. We just don't know what they did. And then we got the confirmation on that saying, yeah, they did, in fact, study UAP in the ATIP program. So it's like this so step-by-step thing where we get the information and then it's resisted and then it's actually confirmed after, because there's no denying it at that point. And then you have people like George Knapp reporting on it, with Harry Reid putting out documentation to prove these points. So, I mean, it really looks to me like there's an internal struggle of people that have access to the knowledge, are trying to put the information out, and they're meeting resistance. And I don't think that this is all just some psychological operation. If that were the case, then they would have just put Luis Elizondo out there, threw out his credentials, because they're all in control in this monolith of power and they're controlling everything. They're controlling the narrative. How come they didn't put Luis Elizondo's papers out, say, yep, Luis Elizondo, he works for ATIP? No, there's been resistance from internal powers to slow down and prevent what's happening with this rolling out via what To the Stars Academy is doing, and the ATIP program and everything like that. So there's a resistance against it. If it was just an approved psychological operation, there would be no resistance. All the paperwork necessary would be provided. But To the Stars Academy seems to be doing it by the book through official channels, and in doing so, they're dealing with the actual resistance against them. So the argument that it's just a PSYOP, just the entire CIA is working on this together and pushing forward their narrative of disclosure, I don't see that as likely, given all these circumstances that we have and that we've seen over the last 2 years. Sure, somebody from inside has green-lighted this. This is not a random event. It's even probably coordinated on different levels. Okay, we've seen progress that's unprecedented. The Navy has come out and acknowledged UFOs and drafted guidelines. The Pentagon had to make the official statement that ATIP did study UAP. These are unprecedented times. Okay, and with that, we're dealing with unprecedented scenarios. So we're seeing something that's never happened before. This is a historic time, and to just distort it in the idea that this is some kind of psychological operation, I don't know whether that makes you look good as a conspiracy theorist to stand your stance as a conspirator, or what the case may be. Maybe you actually have those general suspicions. I don't really know, because the argument at this point is a little bit ridiculous to state as fact, as some of these people are. So these are just some things to consider. I'm putting this out merely as a point of view, perspective, and argument, as a conversational kind of video. I'm not saying, oh, I know the complete truth of everything, and I know this as if all these things are facts. No, I'm putting this out there saying, this is what I've seen so far. Let's have a conversation about it without saying this is a fact, this is a psychological operation, or even this is not a psychological operation. These guys are pushing the ultimate truth. It's very early yet to determine the complete facts of everything, given what we have so far. But for the time being, this looks like it is a positive thing for humanity, that this information is coming out, it's being accepted by the public, people are asking real questions, and we're making real strides in this for the first time in decades. So I don't see how that's a bad thing. We need to take advantage of this while we can, because we may not get another chance like this. And if you have the idea, or you're suspicious that this could take a bad turn, well, you know what? It's going to happen no matter what at this point. The momentum is there. This is not slowing down. This is not going anywhere. That's up to us. We have to take part in the conversation, not by throwing mud and slinging mud at people and, stating things that aren't facts, but by having an open conversation respectfully, intelligently, with humility, and talking to each other in a way where we can present ideas and evidence to support whatever ideas that we think are most likely to be occurring. Okay, so you're not just going to say this is a PSYOP and that's the end of the story and everybody's going to hop on board with that idea and believe it, because we really don't know that much at this time, except that for this is rolling out. It's not stopping. It's not going anywhere. It's actually been a positive development, and we're going somewhere now. So I don't see why don't we take advantage of this opportunity that we have, and not just by getting on board and believing everything that is being put out there or what To the Stars Academy was even saying. I don't even think that they're suggesting that you do that. But let's use this momentum to make something of it. All right. And if you have a certain position, put your position out there in a respectful way without stating it as a solid fact, because you're distorting facts at that point. There's a lot of people putting out facts that they're not facts. They're conspiracy theories. And I'm not against conspiracy theories as a whole, because there are conspiracies, that's a fact. Especially regarding this subject, there's been a cover-up for 70 years that in itself is a conspiracy. But we're seeing that break loose now. So I encourage everybody to look at the evidence. Whether you agree with it or not, try to be unbiased and just look at the facts. Look what's happened so far. Okay, look at the direction we're going in. Consider it and use it as a point to work from, because we don't know where this is going. This is unprecedented, and it's an incredible time to be involved in the UFO subject, because we're obviously going somewhere. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. If you appreciate this kind of conversation and sharing of ideas, I would appreciate if you would like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will be doing a lot more coverage covering all these kind of ideas soon, going everywhere from UFOs, C5, related phenomena, and covering some current events going on with To the Stars Academy. Even though I don't like to come off as a To the Stars Academy defender, I'm still not going to stand by while people just put out false narratives. They're talking about the CIA controlling the narrative, and here they are trying to control the alternative media narrative. So who's doing the real psychological operation here? All right, guys, always keep an open mind. It's cool to be suspicious and skeptical. This is a field that greatly warrants that, but to state things as ultimate fact is crazy. All right, I will see you guys in the next video, guys. Take care. Peace.